Alright, as you can see, this is the debate as to the justness of manifest destiny. I will be taking two different points of view, an even point of view against the justness or against the justness and the nature of manifest destiny and all that's connected to it. For that point of view, I will be sitting right there and using those notes. I will also, without changing clothes or changing my voice due to my lack of acting skills, be taking the odd point of view of the 19th century, around the 1800s, supporting manifest destiny and all that goes with it, at which point in time I will be sitting there and using those notes. So, give me a second to rig up my camera and we will be on our way. Opening statement. All of us enjoy the fruits of our manifest destiny being achieved. We acquired around 60% of America during this time. The Louisiana Purchase and the Mexican-American War added a majority of these lands to the United States. After our country obtained these lands, the questions we were left with are, were our means of acquiring these lands justified? What effects did these means have upon the people? And are these means of acquiring the lands and the effects upon others really what God intended? The Louisiana Purchase I'll address first. It was bought for $15 million, a steal since it encompassed around 827,000 square miles. At the time, it more than doubled the size of the United States. And, unlike the lands east of it, no war had to be fought to obtain it. However, one must dig a little deeper to realize that this land didn't really belong to the French. The French didn't occupy a majority of this land, and they weren't there first either. They didn't even fight the Native Americans to take this land. Settlers just eased in like thieves in the dark and claimed the lands as their own. America paid the French for this land, but how much did the French pay the Indians for it? I'll address the war with Mexico as well. Mexico won its independence from Spain in 1821. In 1833, settlers, mostly Americans, in Texas began a revolt against the Mexican government. In 1846, California acted similarly. That same year, the Congress of the United States of America declared war on Mexico. That means the Mexican government had around 12 years to establish itself and gain strength before the larger, more established United States began harassing them at their borders. Whereas America gained its independence in 1783. Their fortitude was not tested by a powerful country until 1812, when British sparked war. If you do the math, it gave them around 29 years to establish and strengthen themselves, much longer than the 12 years given to the Mexican government in its infancy. The Mexican-American War also wasn't a fight for freedom and rights like our Revolutionary War, and it wasn't to hold a nation together like the Civil War. This war was strictly to gain land, and the land was gained from a weaker country that was in its infancy. I will address some of the same points as the good-looking gentleman in front of me had addressed, but I have a slightly different point of view on how things went down. I will most definitely support manifest destiny until the end. At least part, if not all, of Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and California, I know that was a long list of states, all of which were added to our country through God's plan in the inevitable accomplishment of manifest destiny. Some may argue that godless, lesser cultures and civilizations were negatively impacted during our fulfillment of extending the great country of the United States of America from sea to shining sea. But we only took what we were entitled to, what we paid for or earned, and what was necessary for the destined growth of our country. The 1800s brought forth some challenging times for America. There was overcrowding in our cities. 2 depressions took many homes and jobs from our nation's citizens. The acquisition of more land and the opportunity to buy cheap land in the West, possibly even free lands in the West, possibly make a new start, was a much-needed break for American citizens. I support the union of this great country. I support the founding fathers that designed its governance, and the men that died fighting for its independence. The Constitution of the United States of America encourages nationalism and the strength of being united as states under the federal government. We have a republic and a representative government that has supported the removal of Indians. Andrew Jackson was our popularly elected president. Doesn't he then represent the majority of America? Therefore, doesn't a majority of America, through supporting Andrew Jackson, support the removal of Native Americans? See, I'm pausing right here. I kind of got lost in my acting. Give me a second. I'm probably not going to refilm because that would take too long. Doesn't a majority of America feel that the Indians should assimilate themselves to a civilized way of life? Nations like the Cherokee tried to create their own constitution and their own system of government. Isn't that equivalent to a state like Ohio trying to secede from this country, trying to create their own constitution? The Louisiana Purchase, as he addressed before, it wasn't a steal, it was a deal. President Jefferson made an excellent decision. For the price of $10 million, we would have acquired the state lands around the Port of New Orleans. However, for just $5 million more, our country was able to more than double its size. The Mexican-American War, also addressed, began much like the Revolutionary War. It began with individual states fighting for their freedom. Massachusetts was the first to rebel for freedom against the British during the Revolutionary War, just like Texas was the first to rebel for freedom against the Mexican government. Santa Anna wouldn't compromise and was placing unfair taxes upon the people of Texas, just as Britain was doing to the inhabitants of our original colonies. Who are we not to assist in their efforts to obtain freedom? Whether by the hands of our government or the hands of fate, the accomplishment of manifest destiny was inevitable.